As usual, I try to capture some energy, a sense of energy, through these permanent marks I put down with this Liquitex Paint Marker. These marks will remain all throughout the drawing, no matter how much I erase, and I like the sense of the spontaneous energy these types of marks capture. My next go-to is this pan pastel. I love pan pastel as it is a brilliant material to put down marks and just get down the very basic proportions. I'm very free with it as I put down the darkest marks for the darker parts of the reference and just get the basic proportions down. I do this bearing in mind that I will later on adjust the marks I've put in with the rubber. And that's the thing I love with the pan pastel, that it's very malleable. So the mark you put in, you can mold and mend. You can take some of it, you can take all of it away. It's very intuitive. I find this type of adding and taking away very similar to sculpting, which is another activity I really love. I think these drawings are all about capturing a sense of 3D space. And I humbly suggest, if you like this type of drawing, you might also love sculpting. Here I move on to using sponge wipers. These ones I've just bought off Amazon under the name sponge wipers for drawing. And I love working with these. They are so intuitive and so much fun. And again, it just really gives me a sculpture feeling. But I know you can also buy these through pan pastels, and they might be a little bit more durable than the ones I'm using here. But this is where I start adding in a bit more precisely where I want the darks to go and the lights to go. Again, it's still pan pastel, so it's very easy for me to rub this out if I need to make changes. So when you work with this type of drawing, I'm always trying to create this kind of flurry of movement and activity and light and dark across the page. Also, I think a lot about where there's pure white shining through, where there is gaps, mainly in the background actually. Anywhere on the face, on the lips, I am all right to use an eraser to remove and bring out highlights, but that I feel that it's important to leave some bits of the paper completely untouched and unsmudged, and that creates a nice sense of movement as well. The kind of fresh pieces of the paper also creates a powerful impact on the work. At this point now, I just bring out my kneaded eraser. This is where I want to mention that proportions are, you can work very loosely, but there are just certain things that really have to be precise when it comes to this way of drawing, for the drawing to feel real and to capture that real sense of space and movement. And so that's a real challenge with this type of drawing, and that is just something that takes a lot of practice, because I've found in the past, if I tried to work in with a sketch to ensure that everything is placed in the right position and the proportions are right, that this way of working, where you are sort of sculpting in the charcoal, you need to just play around with it. So I just move where the darkest bits of the paper comes up against the lightest part. Those are the things that hold and anchor the whole picture together, and those are the places where you really have to pay attention if they've been placed in the right parts. But the brilliant way about working like this is that you just keep rubbing away, adding and taking away at your own pleasure. And so I just often put things down and then I'm just moving them around. I bring out the kneaded eraser, I rub out a bit more, and then I just bring it a little bit back again, and I just move things back and forth until I get a feeling that it feels right. I don't really always care that much how close I'm coming to the reference. In fact, I really want to bring something else out of the reference, something that wasn't there, but I use the reference to anchor myself and bring out certain things that I take from the reference, and then certain things where I'm just playing around and actually making the whole thing disintegrate. For me, this type of drawing is a practice of using abstraction and combining it with the figurative, with a portrait or with a figure. And I find there's something about that really captivates me, and I haven't quite put words on why that style really draws me in, but I think it's so important for me personally to just keep doing these drawings where it's got a lot of movement and a lot of spontaneous energy in it, and then you start to draw figures out of that energy. I really love the vitality and the intuitive feeling of these drawings. But when it comes to getting that abstraction, that abstracted feel into the drawing, I think it's so important to just keep repeating the practice over and over again. And the more I do this, the more sweeping the energy becomes in the picture, and the more believable somehow it becomes. And I'm also training my eye in just looking at the picture as a whole. There is the figurative element, but the abstraction is just as important. So one question I find myself mulling over is, what did I really gain from my fine art degree? Was it worth it? And I thought this would be an interesting question to talk a little bit about today, and just question and answer. And then I wanted to just bring up a few of the things that I did get from my fine art degree, and a few things that maybe I missed. So one thing that I really feel I learned from my fine art degree was the fact that it put me in touch with the real art world. I was fortunate enough to do a degree that included work experience, and this was probably the most valuable element of my particular degree. My degree was a foundation course degree, and it included an element that was called work-based learning, and we had to become part of the real art world, the real industry, and take part somehow, and do a lot of research into other artists. And I became a volunteer first in an artist studio in London with a pretty high profile artist, and I managed to land a job later on as his assistant, working creatively together with this artist, and learning a lot of skills in this process. And looking back on my time at art uni, I think this was probably the most valuable lesson that I received. The concept of the particular degree I did was based on the fact that statistically people tend to get work with any work experience they've had. And so this was quite an in-depth work experience. It was several weeks long out of the course, and it was long enough to form a lasting connection for me with this artist, and it became my income and my living in the years after. So in this particular question, was it worth it? Was this art degree worth it? Yes, it was. I managed to land a job afterwards, and this job was so suited for me
it was an incredible experience. I managed to learn so many skills. Do you need art uni to go and volunteer for an artist? I don't think you necessarily do, but it helps. My course director had a connection to this artist that I ended up working for, and she knew who I was as an artist, and she was able to match me with this particular artist, and it just worked really well. So that is one of the things that I'm most grateful from learning, from having received as a result of doing my art degree. I said I would mention a few things, but I think this might just end up being a little bit too long. So I just want to mention one thing that I really wanted to learn at uni that I didn't learn. Despite the fact that was actually a module dedicated to this, which was called the business module. Everybody could choose whether they wanted to go into education or whether they wanted business. And I sort of imagined that the business module would introduce you to way more in-depth ideas of what it actually meant to be an artist and start a business. But what I hadn't really realized at the time was that this module was very specifically designed to lead you into the art world, which is kind of an institution where you need to have an MA. The artist I work for, I'll never forget, he mentioned it doesn't really matter where you do your BA, it's your MA that really will make a difference for your future. Now, at this stage in my life, I've got a BA only, and I'm still hoping at some point to do an MA, but for now I'm building my business without that, which means if you've got a BA and you're starting a business with a BA only, you are not aiming for the big institutions. You are aiming for a different type of business where you're actually creating a product and selling that product. And so that has been my journey, and there has been so many things to learn in building a business based on my creative skills. And those were skills that I wish they would have taught in uni, that they wouldn't have just prepared you for the MA, but they actually would have prepared you for what to do if you go out as a graduate with a BA. What kind of work can you do? And for me, there was a lot of learning involved in learning to apply for shows, learning to create a website, learning to do all the social media involved with a business, learning to do your branding. Do you need a logo? How do you wrap your things? How do you do archival mounting and framing? All of this stuff that I have learned bit by bit has been enough information to be a pretty considerable module in a degree course. And I wish that is something I wish I would have got given as a part of a university degree, which you didn't. It was very much targeted on the business side, was much more about creating a persona as an artist and becoming one of the elite. And that isn't just not the path of your average artist. But I think there's a huge group of people who pursue art in a much different way, and there are loads of opportunities and shows, and not to mention all of the opportunities to sell online. So there's plenty that you could have included in a university degree, which I didn't find. A university degree in fine art, is it worth it? Well, for me personally, I have zero regrets. This was the best thing I ever did. I absolutely loved working as an artist assistant in the years after, and the skills I gained were invaluable. There most certainly was a lot of things that I would have expected to learn in a university degree that I didn't learn, and loads of stuff I had to figure out for myself as I started my art business in the years after. But all in all, I highly recommend doing a fine art degree. Most of all, I would say listen to your inner voice and make sure you choose what is really right for you. If you learn to do that, you are not going to have many regrets in your life. Following your intuition is definitely the key. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm really happy that you have spent this time, and I hope that you found this practice really useful and that you'll do it again and again. And I do recommend just keep the sessions short and repeat them as often as you can, because that will really benefit your artistic development. Thanks again for watching. Please subscribe to stay in touch, and I hope to do loads more of these types of videos. So come back for more. Thanks. All the best.